Hey everyone, it's Dan at Memento Brand, and welcome to the SG podcast.
Let's go. Okay. Thank you, Dan. Thank you for joining me, man. I really appreciate it. You're one of the three amigos in my circle. And
Indeed.
I really appreciate your time today. So thank you for spending some time with us to delve deeper into who is Dan at Memento Brand.
The pleasure is mine, my friend.
Thank you. So first of all, could you explain to the guys that are listening what Momento Brand is, what you do, and where the idea came from where you are now?
Yeah, so I suppose it's starting from scratch, trying to keep a long story short. Towards the end of 2019, I was in right in the midst of my terrible career, and I mean terrible from a standpoint of the type of work and who I was working for and all the rest of it. Anyway, so around about September 2019, I decided I was looking through and looking at the internet. It was a kind of thing of, really, if you want to have a presence on the internet, you're going to have some sort of personal brand or branding or something. You can't just, it's not the age of posting your dinner on Facebook anymore. Those days are still there, but it's reserved for the sort of the next generations type of thing. So towards then, in around about September 2019, started that up, and it was Memento Music. So Memento's sort of has been the starting point. And it took a year to actually figure out what the brand was actually going to be and what it was actually going to do. So originally, when I started it, for a whole entire year, so if you scroll right down to the bottom of my Instagram, it started September 2019. It's just random nerdy posts about consoles and games and basically anything that I was really interested in. And the following September, there was more news about Final Fantasy VII and the remake and stuff like that was coming, sort of in the year coming. And I really thought, well, actually, that's my favorite game in the world. I'd love to get like a framed piece, put the discs in, and and have it on my wall type of thing. So I made one of those, and inevitably I stuck it on. I stuck it on my on the Instagram, and immediately I sort of got flooded with, where did you get this? Like, well, I made it. It's mine. It's like, well, how much is it? I was like, I don't know. I just made it for myself. And that sort of there was the light bulb moment. But I realized that a lot of the stuff I was leaning towards was more like gaming and stuff like that, the retro gaming and stuff that basically just reliving, 20 odd years ago of my sort of gaming past. And then in February 2020, so actually going back, you're talking September 2018 to September 2019, and then in February 2020, this was like a couple of months before the remake actually came out. I sold my first commercial sort of piece, and wow. This was right just before the pandemic sort of came collapsing down on the entire universe. And that was it. Soon as that happened, it was like, right, I want to do this. So I basically spent the entire pandemic building Memento into artworks, digital artworks, frames, just anything. And I mean, don't get us wrong, it's very much a swan song to everything that I like. So yeah. That does generate a good thing though, because all of the clients that come to me are exactly like me, which is just absolute perfection, really.
So you are your ideal customer, which is quite cool.
I suppose so, and that sort of goes hand in hand with the types of you can see from the the website and the product lists and stuff like that, and it's just like it's just my nerd's dream, really. So maybe I am alienating some customer groups, but it's worked so far.
Yeah, that's cool. And so you say that you're bearing in mind that part of this, we're going to be on YouTube, but also podcast like audio. So could you explain just what they would have on the wall? Like if they bought one of your pieces that had the inspiration from, let's say, Final Fantasy VII, mm-hmm. What does it look like for ASMR purposes?
Should I whisper it? Yeah. So basically, say for instance, Final Fantasy VII, the original game that came out in 1997. This was before DVD discs, so the game was so huge that it had to be on multiple discs.
I
So
remember.
I mean, and this is sort of, you know, pre-millennium, everything was on compact disc, so there was only so much data on there. And Final Fantasy VII was at the time a huge game, like data wise. So basically, it was a 3-disc game, came in a nice big chunky case. And basically, for the framed piece, I developed a very nice sort of simple poster with a PlayStation banner on, the Final Fantasy logo in the middle, and then so the sort of appropriate logos and things like that at the bottom. And basically, what you do is you'd have the 3 discs mounted within the poster, and then the booklet sort of just below the logo as well. So you'd have that sort of really sort of nice symmetrical sort of layout. So for those of you listening, it's all to do with symmetry, display, and making sure that the poster is not sort of overpowering of the game itself, because that's the piece of history that you're sort of capturing, is the discs and the manual that, you know, I guess are sort of actually getting hard to get a hold of now, because you know, you're talking 25 years on.
That's it. And I think the thing with that as well is to see them, like for me personally, they are so crisp, and like you've done such a good job in like my eyes, it's such a good job of the nostalgia side of things, of remembering what it was, but also bringing it to the modern day as well. Like it works so well from the eyes perspective. It is awesome. I'm really, really impressed with them.
Oh, thank you very much for that.
So you started in the once that started rolling, what point did you then go, okay, right, we need to go to Etsy? Etsy's the place that, you know, the marketplace for me. You know, how did that come about?
I think it was sort of a natural progression. I've always believed that if you're going to start a brand and a business, it needs to look the part. It has to do certain things. So you have to have your domain name. So you have to have a website that is, you know, so mine was mementobrand.co.uk, and I've got mementobrand.com. You know, very simple. It's what a business should have. You should have your unique identity with its own unique domain, including your sort of your email addresses and stuff like that. So I set all that up. And then from there, it was sort of like the site, building a site, and you know from your own experience, you know, building a site, having a site is one thing, but then driving people to that site is a totally different beast altogether. So I had to sort of think, well, how do I build a portfolio from zero? Because at the minute, you know, in the early days, I was literally just selling to people who saw my stuff on Instagram. And over the last 2.5 years, the sort of Instagram has turned into a totally different beast altogether in terms of, you know, the discoverability. And, you know, we've had the conversation many a time about how social media has really leaned on that pay-to-play sort of situation. So if you want people to see it, then you're going to have to pay us for it type of thing.
Even if they're your followers.
Even if, yeah, exactly. So probably out of the two and a bit thousand people that follow me, probably 150 see my stuff. Do you know what I mean? So it's a bit of a con, you know what I mean? But I understand why they do it from their point of view. You know, they've got to monetize their situation as well. So I thought, well, what is the next best thing? What has that sort of built-in sort of situation with, you know, advertising products, you know, a customer database and a built-in CRM and all of these different things that you sort of need. And Etsy was a natural sort of, right, well, let's have a look. And Etsy is, you know, predominantly sort of aimed at handmade stuff and things like that. And I thought, well, you know, that fits the bill. So in terms of Etsy, it was more about, right, the discoverability for the products is there. So really that was a natural progression just to get there. Plus they've got sort of built-in advertisement functionality and stuff like that. So it's really sort of the dummy's guide of how to do it, basically.
Yeah. Okay. And that's interesting as well, because it's kind of like one of the things that I've wanted. I know we've spoke about it on separate occasions in small detail, but for the guys that are joining, that are listening along, watching along as well, what sort of pitfalls as a designer that has uses other brands within their products, what sort of pitfalls and things have you found along the way? Like what hardships have you had?
Yeah, so with Etsy and with anything really, not so much from advertising from my own perspective, but at the end of the day, one of the issues is, like, say for instance, Final Fantasy VII, it's a franchise in its own right that belongs to, you know, Square Enix, Squaresoft, and, you know, the people who make Final Fantasy VII. So you're really sort of skirting the line between, you know, is it a unique and original product, which from my point of view it is, but you are using essentially the branding of a franchise that already exists. So you really sort of you're skirting a fine line type of thing. And there has been instances where some of the some products and some designs that are based on other things have been taken down because they've stepped over the line of copyright infringement and stuff like that, which, you know, I totally understand. But at the same time, in the same breath, I'm sort of saying, well, look, I'm not buying, you know, the consumables and the materials to make shoes and then sticking a nice big tick on it and selling it as Nikes. Do you know what I mean? So,
Yeah,
you
that's
know,
true.
that's a different beast altogether, you know,
100%.
in its own right, because then that is outright sort of, you know, selling knockoffs type of thing.
Yeah.
Where what I'm trying to do is display a piece of history in, you know, in an original sort of way. And
Yeah.
one of the interesting sides of that though was Sony used to actually have basically like a franchise scheme that they used to run,
Oh,
where
wow.
you could apply and sort of say, well, I want to make products that are based on Sony games or Sony PlayStation
Wow.
or whatever. And they would review your profile and sort of say, well, you are offering a product that we don't, therefore we see that as an original product. Two, it advertises us as Sony and all the rest of it to whoever
Oh,
your customer base is. But I've sort of come to a dead end with that in terms of finding out whether that is still a thing, because what they used to do was, if you got approved, they would send you out the assets with the logos and stuff like that, and there would be a special PlayStation logo which would be like part of the PlayStation store and all the rest of it.
wow.
So there is proper channels to go through to get these things done properly. But in terms of going sort of circling back down to Etsy, I think the problem there was that obviously 21st century, you know, the internet is run by bots. So
Yep.
you don't get people coming onto your profile and then making a complaint to Etsy saying this is copyright infringement. It's a bot. Basically, it looks for keywords, it looks at the SEO, and it goes, right, that says Iron Man, that belongs to Marvel. So do you know what I mean? So regardless of what the product is, do you know what I mean? You know, they just go, nah, that's it. And then Etsy have no choice, because they then go, right, we've had this complaint, we must take it down. It is guilty until proven innocent type of thing.
Yeah, that's annoying. And it's one of those things, isn't it? That's, you know, the rules, so you do what you can, and if it gets taken down, fine, or you get warned, fine, and then you go a different route and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly. It is, you know, it's a work in progress. You know, artists like myself, and if you look at Etsy, you put any franchise into Etsy, you'll see thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands. And 90% of them, you know, probably more than that, are not people trying to sell knockoff goods.
Yeah.
They are just fans that are selling things that they've made in their 3D printer, or they've made some key rings, or they've made a coaster. Do you know what I mean? And it's not, the intent is not to make knockoff goods to steal money from Sony. Do you know what I mean? This is a passion project. Most of these Etsy profiles are people who are making things that they love and just want to, you know, get the cost of the materials back, because, you know, 9 times out of 10 we're selling stuff for literally cost. Yeah, some of the stuff are loss items. Do you know what I mean? So some of our prints, some of our smaller prints, you buy those prints of us, it actually costs us. It's a gateway product. So it's a product designed to get you in to look at our other stuff. So if you buy smaller products, it actually costs us money. Do you know what I mean? But that's not the aim of the game ultimately. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of, yes, we'd all love to be making shed loads of money, but there are certain aspects of the business that have to, you know, bring eyeballs to the profiles and the shops and things like that. That's worth its weight in gold just as much as money is.
Yeah. And how does it work as well? Because I know you ship, we spoke about it again recently, you ship overseas. How does shipping delicate items overseas work?
Very stressfully is the main one. So basically what I used to do with the poster prints and stuff
Yeah.
like that, I used to print, pack, ship that all by hand basically, and it was becoming such a burden. It turned into that whole thing where I ended up working in the business as opposed to on the business, which is not where you want to be as a business owner.
Yeah.
So with all the poster prints, and I wanted to make sure it was a full range of sizes and options and things like that, I outsourced it. And I think it got to that point where time versus money, I'm spending so much time on this. If I factored my time into the overheads of doing these posters, then I am out a lot of money. So, and it's, and don't get us wrong, I'm not massively money orientated, but God, I've got to keep the lights on. I need to be working on the business, not in it as a warehouse operative. Do you know what I mean? So I outsourced all of that. So it does cost us a little bit more per unit, but it costs us very little percentage of time compared to what it used to. So exactly. Time is money, as the famous saying goes. But with the frame stuff, going back to that shipping those frames, because they're A2 size, so you're talking,
big.
They are the half a meter tall type of thing for the smallest ones. So basically, I use copious amounts of bubble wrap. I use wooden braces inside the packages to make sure that even if somebody stepped on one, it wouldn't actually.
Wow.
And that I've learned how to do these things through bitter experience when people have opened the packages and some courier drivers decided to stand on it, despite the fact I've used 13,000 yards of fragile tape on the box, which would sort of indicate that maybe be a little bit careful. But do you know what I mean? It's one of those things. Don't trust. You just can't trust it, and it's unfortunately it's one of those processes that's sort of out of your control. As soon as you hand that over to the courier, it's up to them.
Yeah, that's cool. And I think that shows your maturity within the business as well, right? You've had to go through the fun part of that, and ultimately you want to get your product. Obviously, it costs you more money to send it out twice and 3 times, whatever. But ultimately, you want your piece of artwork, whether it be the poster or with the discs in, whatever it might be, you want it to be there as well as it left the studio, because that's what they bought. They bought that, the dream of having that on their wall. Look, they know where it's going. That's it, isn't it?
Exactly. This, and when it breaks my heart when in the very few instances I've sent out hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of things, and there's maybe 10 instances altogether that I can think of where somebody's went, oh, this is nicked, or this is bent, or this is chipped, and it's just been a case of I know that our good friend Steve, his best friend Elria bought a frame off me.
Yeah.
And it arrived at his house and he went, I don't mean to be a bother, mate, but it's there's something wrong with it. And he sent us a picture, and literally the courier, it's one of these sort of long, skinny frames.
Yeah.
And it had trading cards in it. And it would basically been snapped in half. And I was just like, I can't even explain that. I do assure you that left me in one piece and has arrived in 2 pieces. So I'm afraid. And basically, in instances like that, when it's just like, because although everything gets shipped and shoered, anybody who's chased a courier like Royal Mail or DPD or anybody like that for you've damaged my item, I need my compensation. That process is very lengthy, very boring. And is designed to be so that you waste so much time that you then say that actually this isn't worth my time chasing it. Yeah. So anyway, but I'm very stubborn. So one of the things I do is I just go, right, we are going to send out a brand new piece and, leave the rest to us. You shouldn't have to wait in between this. And then basically spend an hour a week or whatever it takes to sort of harass the couriers for money back. So. But that's not the customer's fault at the end of the day, so they shouldn't have to suffer that extent of time and delayed, But it's sending things just domestically is stressful enough. But sending them overseas is definitely
interesting beast.
Bum twitching moment, yeah.
So do you have any I know as a business, you said you've got lots of projects that go in. Is there any one project that you are the most proud of? Like, is there anything that you sort of look at and go, oh, pat yourself on the back kind of moment? Is there anything that is there anything that stands out?
I suppose not. I suppose there's two things really from two elements of Memento Brand.
Okay.
So I suppose from one end is obviously that beginning, that Final Fantasy VII piece that started the whole brand in the first place.
Yeah.
I then went on to make an entire series of those products,
That's a good shout.
which is sort of and it's just been like to see the progression and see like a timeline. And then the 25th anniversary was just this year gone.
Yeah.
And it was just and making a special piece for that, and just to sort of see there's a little historic timeline of the product. I was sort of dipped our toe into the sea of the world of streaming, and sort of a couple of years when I started collecting trading cards and things like that, you know, it kicked off big time when I started getting into streams, because I thought, you know, I had that misconception I was watching. Why would somebody watch somebody open cards? Why would I pay for them to open my card? I couldn't get my head around it anyway.
Okay.
When it came round to the whole, I've got to, you know, I'm very sort of, I understand these things are very subjective. So I went, if I'm going to understand it, I'm going to have to experience it. Well, you know, the rest is history, because then as soon as I've met people like yourself, and I've met people like our good friend Mounty, and I've joined in on those streams, and I've went, actually, yeah, I'm going to buy some cards, open them for us. And then being part of that experience was just like, bing, just totally get it. I totally get it. And,
It's
you know,
great.
I've banged on about it, you know, many a time about that. It's just being part of the experience. And then there's other people in the chat and they're celebrating your wins and all of this thing. And it's just like a big family community type of thing. And I totally get it now. Whereas at first I was just like, why would I pay money for somebody to open my cards for us? Do you know what I mean? And I think that's where people start. Do you know what I mean? I think that's where the ignorance element of it starts. But then to experience it, it was just like ping, just totally made sense. But then from there, it was like, right, I now don't find collecting cards as much of an interest. I want to do this myself. So in that sort of this, like I say, this time last year, it was like the next level buzz for me is I want to do what these guys are doing. I don't want to sort of copy them or, you know, do a bad job of it or look shit doing it. But at the same time, I want to do it justice, and I want to bring that. I want to give people that feeling that they give the likes of you and Mounty and others have give me when I've been part of it, and still do. Do you know what I mean? Actually, funnily enough, on my stream last night, I opened your package. I'm sure I've got it.
Go on.
And I was sort of look at that.
That is so cool. And you pulled that. So when the people that are listening as well, I was live at the London card show doing a stream for bits on there. And episode wise, Walt was on earlier on episode 4 as well. So go back and listen to that. But I was live at the show, and Dan, Momento Brand, was listening in, watching on, and actually bought cards and pulled probably one of the best cards of the day. So that's awesome.
Yes.
It's so cool.
But it was this one. I was actually at a kids' party at the time, and I was sort of sitting there with my phone in my ear, going, "Shut up!" I'm listening, and I could hear you saying "Memento." I was like, "That's me." And it's just even now doing the trading cards, doing the streams, and you know, we've now got the bits auctions, like you were talking about, Walt, the UK manager of bits. And it's just like being part of those situations is still fun. However, sort of doing them is, and you know, preaching to the choir here, but doing them is next level. The experience is just next level, and I absolutely love it. So I think from a part of the business that I absolutely love to see from those sort of 2-3 years ago to what I'm doing now, I'm sort of sitting here with a mic and a setup and lights and all of this sort of stuff. And I'm just like, if I'd shown my 3-year ago self this, they'd be like, what actually
how
happened?
Did you get there? Yeah,
exactly. You know, but it's just been such a nice progression, and it's so enjoyable to do. And I think, you know, I think for myself, coming away from, you know, unfortunately, I lost my job in the pandemic, like, you know, hundreds and thousands of people did. And it's the same for yourself, you know. And it's one of those things where it really puts you in a in a position in your mind. For me, because it was such a bad environment to be in, I was sort of 75% relieved that I didn't have to go back there ever again in my entire life. And like from the point of view of doing this business, I think it's really saved me from a mental standpoint. I was in such, and even through work and through that bad period, I had this in the background, and I was building something. I was doing something. This studio that I'm actually sitting in now,
Yeah.
was originally supposed to be like a small salon space for my partner, who
Oh, wow.
she now owns. She now owns her own salon up the road,
Whoa.
because she sort of saw a salon and went, actually that's a purpose built salon, so we're going to take that. And I thought, well, there's no way I'm letting this go. And I'm going to keep this on the on the overheads for
Yeah.
whatever I'm going to journey into. And then lo and behold, I'm sort of sitting here with a full setup. I'm still not fully decorated, mind, but that's a story from a different time.
That's the cool thing as well, Dan. Like for me as well, like I've seen the design side of things and the streaming side of things, and a lot of people know maybe one or the other, and it's because of the love from my side, because of the love for the mutual love in both sides. You've got all the nostalgic things that you create and sell and everything like that, where it all mixes in. It just makes sense as a brand. Like you were saying, you got to make a personal brand. Like it just makes sense that it all bleeds into one. It's really cool, man. It's nice to see from the outside that it all links in that well. Another question for you, Dan, is coming towards the end of the episode. I wanted to understand if there's anything that you know now that you wish you knew when you started either streaming or the business, that you could pass on to the audience, that they could learn from and use your nuggets to help themselves.
I suppose there's one excellent thing, and I mean, you see these gurus on the internet sort of saying, invest in yourself, learn new things, and all of these sorts of things, which is great advice. When it comes to things like that, there's no bad advice. My best bit of advice, however, that I've benefited from without spending money on courses or going to college or doing anything, is don't do it alone. If you've got an idea and a brand and a business and whatever you're doing, don't do it alone at all, ever. There's always, surround yourself with good people. And now, obviously, I'm sort of saying that because one of the elements of this is, being good friends with yourself and our mate Steve, and we've got our own chat. That in itself has brought me more value to the ideas, and more so the motivation to sort of get up. There's been many a times when I've been, you have those days where you go, nah, I can't be bothered. And then I get in that chat and I'm talking to you boys, and you'll say, I'm doing a YouTube video about this and like ideas. Have you boys? Yeah. And I'm just like, right, that's it. And I'm up out the chair and I'm on it, because we don't work together. We don't financially support each other, or we don't pay each other to consult each other, but we are there for each other. And that is in itself, you cannot put a price tag on that. And I think if that is the best bit of advice I can take to anybody, is don't do it by yourself. Surround yourself with good people, and you'll in a couple of years you'll be very surprised at how far you've gotten just with that support network behind you.
Fully agree with you 100%. And as you say, the group chat that we've got between the three of us, I'm going to try and get the three of us into a podcast episode as well, because I think
100%,
100%, right? It's going to be fun. We need to share our gems with others. And then finally, I have a section at the very end of each episode where the person from the previous episode asks a question blindly. I don't tell them who's coming up next. They ask a question. So the question from Pokey Rich, who was on before you, from episode 6, asks, do you think the reselling of trading cards of any type is a positive thing for the hobby, or for any hobby?
So the resale, I think this we've sort of touched on this from sort of my perspective of becoming a streamer, whatever I am in this sort of area of the business. It's all to do with motivation. Why are you doing it? Are you doing it to make money? Or is there an underlying positivity to that? Because I've seen, like with yourself, you've done charity shows, you know, you've built a massive community of hundreds of people behind it, people who enjoy, you know, interacting with each other and sharing stories and supporting each other. And there's, you know, there's that whole sort of link with mental health. There's always a safe space for people to go to. And that has all blossomed into a massive flower from selling trading cards.
Yeah.
So
Fair.
from that perspective, 100%. But there is, you know, there's in every industry, there is always bad eggs. With us, it's scalpers and people buying things and, you know, and selling it for massive markups and scamming people with fake cards or resealed packs and stuff like that. So, but you're always going to have the dark side of an industry. But as long as the motivation is pure, do you know what I mean? There's no, you know, as long as that intention is good, then 100%, yeah, 100%.
That's really cool. Okay, that's a good insight, Dan. I like that. Thank you. So that's everything I've got. If you can share your social media, your website, how to find you on Etsy, any information that the guys can find you, how can they find you?
Yeah, smashing. So the website is very simple, www.mementobrand.com. You can also find us on Etsy. You just bang Memento Brand in the search bar and, you know, loads of stuff will come up. On every social media platform, it's at Memento Brand. And I suppose it would be appropriate to do a little plug for our partners at the Card Vault.
Yes.
So the Card Vault, big hobby and tradable collectibles store, www.thecardvault.co.uk. Loads of great prices on those. And myself and Sam, you can actually use our promo codes. Mine's Memento Brand. What's yours, Sam?
I think mine's Sam's got her.
Sam's got her. There we go. So yeah, so you can get in touch with those guys. Got some great products. So little extra plug there.
That's good. No, and actually, while we're talking about that, I loved the idea that, so with Bits, as you guys listening may know, it's a platform where you can bid on items, and it's a video version of eBay, but with entertainment and stuff. And one of the cool things is that they've got loads of different categories. And as Momento Brand, you've been on there as the Card Vault, working with the Card Vault to say, right, this is our Funko Pop live, and then maybe a Pokemon live, and splitting it out like that. I think that is a genius idea, both for yourself and the shop. So yeah, man, I love that as an idea. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, shout out to the guys at Bits as well. You know, they've been so supportive from a seller's standpoint, making sure everybody's sort of got the tools and techniques they've got to succeed, basically. So it's been a great introduction to a new platform. It's good to get in on the base, and you know, when something fresh has started, I think it's going to be really positive for everyone.
Yeah, agreed. Well, thank you, Dan. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing everything with us. And hope you have a good rest of your day.
My pleasure, mate. Thanks very much, bud.
Cheers, Dan.
Cheers, man.